Welcome back everyone. For today's video we have an interesting game. We're gonna see the London system in action. Vaishali playing with the black pieces versus Alexandra Goryachkina. I think that's, I hope I'm not mispronouncing her last name. So let's start with this one. The game starts with d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6, c3, e6, and now bishop f4, right? So this is common London system structure. The game continues with c5. Okay, striking to the center right away with the idea of going knight c6. We get e3. Now queen b6. If you want to make the London system player uncomfortable, then you always want to play queen b6 because it forces them to respond. This pawn is hanging. Now queen b3. Next we get bishop to d7. So this move of bishop d7 is avoiding any shenanigans, right? Maybe giving a check here. Okay, knight b to d2, bishop to e7, bishop to e2, castle. White is also going to castle. Rook c8, knight to e5. And this is the most common move. That's like the most common move on this system, putting the knight, putting pieces on e5. And this is the point of the London system, right? Given the pawn structure, these two squares are protected, right? e5, maybe c5. But yeah, especially e5, you put a piece here. The game continues, bishop to e8, avoiding the trade. Bishop to g5, knight to c6, f4, and here, knight to f5, queen takes on b6. Oh yeah, sorry, I was confused about one move. So a takes on b6, and the first novelty of the game is gonna be f5. Normally, in one game, this was played before. Bishop to d3, then we get something like bishop d6, giving up this pawn structure. Okay, the game will continue, and I think black went on to winning this game. But in this game, we get f5. f5, this is a completely new game. Now h6, bishop to h4, e takes on e5, rook recovers the pawn, knight to c6, a3, bishop to d8, rook a to the f1, knight takes on e5. And notice how the e5 pawn or the e5 square is still very valuable for white, right? However, this is gonna cause problems later. Bishop to c6. Okay, notice how this bishop has to keep an eye on the pawn, and this rook is kind of awkward. So black's plan is to reroute this rook. Rook a to ef8. Sorry, I also want to mention here, let's say we play a normal move like rook a to b8 in this position. So there's tactics here. White can even sacrifice the rook. This will be a brilliant move. Bishop takes, he takes. But yeah, the dominance of this rook is too much. So that will be slightly winning for white. We can grab the pawn here. Okay, bishop to c6 is played. Rook f to e1. Yeah, the bishop is keeping an eye on the knight. Bishop to rook to c7, sorry. h3, rook to d7. Finally grabbing some space for this rook. Keeping an eye also on d5. Bishop to g3, bishop c7, offering the trade of bishop, so we get that. Rook to e5, right? Again, occupying this square on e5. Okay, rook to e8, offering the trade of rooks. And according to the computer, the best move is just to trade. Like you gotta trade and go into this endgame. Okay, rook to f8, rook to f5 is played. It's still playable, it's fine. So rook takes on e5, and rook takes again, right? This is kind of the focal point of the whole game. e5, that's what white wanted to do anyway, to get a piece here and put pressure on the e file. Okay, g6. Now we get d takes on c5, b takes. I think something important happens in this position. Black manages to undouble the pawns. Okay, now we get c4. Now king f8, best move. C takes on d5. And c takes on d5 is an important move. It doesn't look like it's doing much, but let's say we get something like b3, like, oh, I'm gonna protect my pawn or something. If you realize something important, now this rook is not even protected by a pawn. And after this, the rook is trapped. It doesn't have any squares. Yeah, it just doesn't, cannot go here, cannot go anywhere. The rook is trapped. So c takes on d5 is the best move because now you're giving some air to the rook, right, in this square, for example. So bishop takes, bishop to c4 completely blunders the game. And it's the same idea. For example, let's say we get something else, a4. a4 keeps everything balanced, the game continues, but with bishop to c4, you're asking the same question. Okay, where is your rook going exactly? It's not going anywhere. And let's just continue here, bishop to c6, and black ignores it. Instead of playing bishop to c6, we just trade here. This loses the advantage, right? So bishop b5. This is like a tactical, I'm gonna say it's a tactical advantage because the rook is trapped, probably it's positional. Okay, bishop to c6 is playing the game. Rook takes on c5. Now the rook has some space, but it doesn't have a lot. Now something like b6. Now I was thinking, sorry, about a4, just to show you again this idea. If the rook doesn't take here, now knight goes there, knight to d7, rook is trapped. Okay, so the rook has to take the pawn, and after b6, yeah, again, right, the rook is trapped, not squares available, it's only moving the position, rook to c6, rook takes back, and now, yeah, this is a completely losing position. Black is up the exchange, bishop to b5, rook to c2, and the continuation is probably not super important because you're gonna target the pawns here. You're going to try to simplify 3 pieces, target the king. So bishop to e4. Now this pawn is hanging. Okay, but I think that was a good concept. Try to keep pieces on the board, grabbing the other pawn. Knight takes on b6. Rook to c2, threatening to grab this pawn. So after bishop to b5, rook takes with check. King has to move. Rook to b2, hitting this pawn. Knight to d7 check, king e7, knight to c5. Okay, protecting the pawn. King d6, knight to b7 check, king d5, b4, king to e4, knight to c5 check, king f3, and now you're also threatening to checkmate the king, right? Now after bishop to d3, f5, and then white resign. White resign of the spot. I think the computer says like mate in 8, mate in 9. Yeah, it's terrible for... It is not good moves. That's the problem. Knight to a4, a sample line. We can just play rook b3, knight c5, rook takes on a3. And yeah, this is completely losing anyway. It's completely losing for white.